Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call to order the Thursday, August 4th regular scheduled meeting of the Asheboro City Council and welcome you all in attendance tonight. We'll start the meeting with a moment of silent meditation and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will join me. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two excused absences tonight. Mr. Bell and Mr. McCaskill are both not in attendance. And just for the record, the meeting is streamed live on YouTube. Facebook, YouTube. Okay. I'd like to call on Mr. Jeremy Skidmore. He's got a short presentation on the Impact Now. And Jeremy is the Artistic Director for Rhino Leap. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Hi, thank you guys very much for having me. So this summer, for the first time, Rhino Leap Productions, in cooperation with Venture Asheboro, started a program called Impact Now, which was a 2-week social entrepreneurship camp for teenagers, which was hosted by the George Washington Carver Community Enrichment Center. We brought in 16 teenagers from all over the county, and during the day they were taught various different aspects of starting their own businesses, from marketing, finance, budget creation. In the afternoon they were formed into teams, and they each tackled a different social challenge that they identified in Randolph County that they believed during a 12-month period, for a budget of $20,000 or less, they could create a proposal that could have a noticeable impact. They then worked for 2 weeks in those teams to create those proposals, and those proposals were then presented to a panel of community leaders on the final day, including John Ogburn. And then the panel picked a proposal that they felt was the strongest and had the greatest possibility for impact and success. And that program is now going to be implemented over the course of the next 12 months. We have 2 of the 4 teammates from that proposal are here tonight. It's Alex Toller, if you want to stand, and Jody Hostetler, if you want to stand. Oh, and Aiden is here, and Aiden Davis. Great. Thank you guys very much for coming. The only person not here is Hannah Charles, who's on vacation. The proposal that they presented was tackling the stigma around mental health and wellness. The initial idea is going to be to create a mural that's based off of what's called the mental health wheel. That's going to be painted on a wall somewhere within the city of Asheboro. Once their proposal was picked, John Ogburn immediately set about making it into a much bigger, more substantial idea, which we were immediately grateful for. So the idea now is there'll be a week in May that the city of Asheboro will designate as Mental Health Awareness Week. We're going to have a variety of different national leaders who will come and speak around the issues of mental health and wellness. And we're also going to invite a number of different practitioners to present their different ways of tackling mental health and wellness, since there isn't a one-size-fits-all component. And then that week will culminate in the unveiling of this mural that we will have commissioned. Because of all the team members, none of them are graduating this year. They're all going to be able to participate actually in the implementation of the program and the implementation of the mural and the selection of the artist who's going to create the mural. So we're all very excited for that too. So we're glad that you guys can be a part of that. Thank you all very much. You guys can sit. I don't know if you'd open it up to any questions, but.
Got anything to add?
Just exciting.
We're hoping to do this again. We should be deciding in the next month or 2. So.
Jeremy, how many, I know you said 16 young people participated. How many were you able to take? Was that the total group or people that applied to participate, or?
So we had about 50 applicants, and the way that we handled admission was we approached 12 community leaders to nominate a participant, and so that person was automatically part of the group, and then the rest were done via application.
Very good. Impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Any
Are
other
there
questions?
any other good ideas that seem marketable but didn't have enough funding?
There are. Now I'm trying to decide if I should tell you. There actually were a number of good ideas. One of them really focused on food insecurity. One of them focused on creating, was felt that within the community, as far as job availability and events, there's no one single place that anybody in Randolph County can go to find out what the employment opportunities are, what the events are, what the educational programs that are being offered are. So really one-stop shopping community calendar website idea. And then there was one around trying to improve attendance at Asheboro High School, were the other three.
I suffered from that too.
What do you think the students got out of the experience?
You guys want to say anything that you got out of the experience? Yeah.
Come on up to the microphone and introduce yourself. And
Hi, I'm Alex Toller. Personally, what I got out of the experience is I learned a lot about many different topics. I learned about starting business. I learned about our community. And I really learned about how there is so much in Asheboro that I never really thought about before. And I really am very appreciative of getting the opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jody Huffdetler, and for me, this opportunity was, for lack of a better word, really cool. I learned about marketing, and as Alex has said, starting a business, because me personally, I would like to start an art business of my own. And through this, I was able to learn a lot more, and I was able to really bond with other people. And it was a great way to really kind of hone my ability to be able to talk in front of others and get more comfortable when it comes to subjects like this. Thank you.
thank you. Come on up, young man.
Hello, my name is Aiden Davis, and what I learned from all the impact now is there has been so many opportunities and so many doors that have opened for many of the kids that were in the program, and including myself. I think that it helped a lot when it comes to, as Jody said, learning new things and making new friends on the way. As of, there are so many big businesses that have grown off of entrepreneurships, and the fact that we got to meet those people and now we are friends with those people, it can help us a very long way. Thank you.
Come up here. I did not recognize you. What, he's grown a foot since I saw him? This is my buddy AJ, or Aiden, and we've had a fairly close relationship for, what? Since he was 12. And he's my buddy. I did not recognize you. It's been so long, and you have grown up so fast. He was Student of the Year at Sam's last year. Yeah. Proud of you.
Grew up good over the summertime, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay, Jeremy, anything else?
I'm good,
Thank you. And thank all of you students, and good luck. I hope you enjoy this and come away with some life skills and some lifelong experiences. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate what Rhino Leaf does in our community. It's an incredible asset to have in a small town like Asheboro. Okay. Mr. Faust.
Mayor, on behalf of Mr. Faust, I'm just going to tell you who's here to speak.
Please do.
Okay. Me. I promise I will be very brief, okay? Because I'm not the expert on this. We've got Susie Scott is here, Chip Faust is here, Chuck Edgerton is here, and Michael Trogdon is here. All four folks are going to want to say something to you. Don't think it's going to be a long presentation, even when it's all put together. They do have a lot they want to say. Obviously, we're talking about the Confederate monument that sits outside in front of the county courthouse. Causes a lot of heartburn and a lot of pain, a lot of heartache to a lot of people. It's an important thing to a lot of people, and they want to be heard about it. They understand you are not the county commissioners. You do not have authority to go over the county courthouse and take something down, which is what I'd like to see happen. But you can pass a resolution requesting the county commissioners to appoint a committee or a commission to study the impact on the people of this county and of this city. And that's what we're asking for. Now, I'm going to sit down in a minute, and Mr. Edgerton's going to stand up and read you the resolution. I believe you may have already seen it. You have a pretty good idea what's in it. Maybe longer than you want it to be, but there are a number of things in there that they feel are important to be in the resolution. We understand that when this council passes a resolution, it's your resolution, it's not ours. You get to pass what you want, and we know how that works. But this is a proposed resolution that we would like to see passed. We've got Susie Scott, who's got a brief presentation to you about some of the history behind slavery and the Civil War. Very brief presentation. Some of the things she has learned that she wasn't taught when she was young. The main presentation, I guess, is probably Clyde Chip Faust. He's got some stuff to tell you, and when he's finished, he's got a little handout for you. When he's done, Bishop Trogdon's got some words to say. When he's done, we're finished. So that's what we've got. I would ask you all to pay close attention. These people are really serious about it, and this is a really serious problem for a lot of people in this city and in this county. And it's bizarre to walk into the courthouse here and have to walk past this monument. I'm a white guy, all right? It wasn't erected to keep me cowed or to put me in my place. But it was erected to put some people in their place. That was the idea. And the more you look into the history of it, the more you see that. You'll hear something about that now. It would be wonderful if it were not there, rather than just being airbrushed out of some photographs when we try to ask businesses to locate here, which is what we've been doing. So that's what I've got.
Will we be given a copy of this resolution?
I'm sure you've got a copy. Isn't that right, Chuck?
Yeah, it's in the packet I gave you too, with the coach.
Okay.
That's
We'll get you plenty of copies. We'll get you 3 apiece if that's what you want.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Materian. Mr. Edgerton, come on up, sir. And for each speaker, just introduce yourself to the council in the microphone and
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, John, for getting us started tonight. My name is Chuck Edgerton.
raise the mic.
Raise the mic a little bit more. Okay, thank you. It's an honor to be here standing before you tonight, and I've been asked to read the resolution to you, so bear with me. It's in resolution language. But as John was saying, we're very passionate about this, and we really feel that ultimately this is going to make Asheboro a better place. We can get this thing to move. Resolution to remove and relocate the Confederate statue and monument located at the historic Randolph Courthouse. Whereas, in the city of Asheboro, on public property owned by the County of Randolph, in a prominent location on the grounds of the Randolph County Courthouse property, a statue of a Confederate soldier dedicated to, quote, our Confederate heroes in 1911 and still in 2022 stands as a monument in monument to the Confederacy. And whereas monuments dedicated to Confederate heroes are to a significant number of Randolph County citizens offensive and painful reminders of the legacy of slavery, racism, and racial inequality in our county, and whereas in our country, and whereas the Randolph County chapter of the NAACP has brought it to the attention of the county commissioners that that Randolph County should be known as an inclusive community, that they are not interested in destroying the monument, but that the monument should not stand where it is. And whereas telling a more complete history of Randolph County in regard to the Civil War, slavery, conscription of Confederate soldiers, Quaker resistance, Union sympathizers, and facts about the activities of Randolph County citizens in the 19th century will hopefully enable Randolph County citizens in the 21st century and beyond to come to terms with our history and to become a more inclusive community. And whereas the continued display of this Confederate monument on public property at the courthouse in Asheboro is antithetical to the stated public policy of the city of Asheboro to be a welcoming community to peoples of all backgrounds. And whereas the elected Randolph County Commissioners have the authority to relocate or remove the monument because, as evidenced in other communities, Confederate monuments display the potential for unsafe and dangerous conditions, which could harm the public's health, safety, and welfare. And whereas the people of Randolph County desire that the Randolph County Commissioners consider all of the residents of Randolph County and to be an inclusive and compassionate governing body. And whereas the people of Randolph County want our county to be a county of unity, to lead by example and to be accepting of all its citizens. Now, therefore, to accomplish these goals, it is resolved as follows: that the elected commissioners of Randolph County create a committee to investigate the options which the county has to find a place where the statue of the Confederate soldier and the monument and pedestal upon which it stands, as presently located on the grounds of the Randolph County Courthouse property, can be relocated or removed. And that a date be set for the committee to present its report to the commissioners. And that after receiving the report, the commissioners take action to relocate or remove the statue and monument so that it will be moved to private property rather than public property, or placed in an appropriate museum or park and displayed in a historical context, along with other monuments to the Randolph County citizens who were present during the Civil War, rather than as a public glorification of, quote, Confederate heroes. And the appropriate action be taken by the Randolph County Commissioners to carry out these goals. Dated 7th day of March, 2022, Clyde L. Faust, Jr., President, NAACP of Randolph County.
Thank you, sir. Give it to Holly, the clerk, please.
Thank you for giving us time to speak. I'm going to lower this again. When I was a child, I knew that slavery existed before the Civil War, and it ended when the Confederacy lost. I was also told that the Civil War was fought over a lost cause, but no one ever explained exactly what that was. I now know that the main cause for the Civil War was to preserve and expand slavery. In fact, Article 1, Section 9.4 of the Constitution of the Confederate States, March 11, 1861 reads, "No bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law denying or impairing the right of property in Negro slaves shall be passed." Instead of protecting states' rights, the Confederate Constitution denied the rights of states to establish their own laws prohibiting slavery. Before the end of the war, the United States Congress passed the 13th Amendment, which was ratified on December 6, 1865. It abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. The following year, Edward Pollard wrote The Lost Cause, a new Southern history of the War of the Confederates. In 1868, he followed that book with The Lost Cause Regained, which is the source of the states' rights arguments. Both books were written after the war. Although Edward Pollard's views on slavery changed shortly before his death in 1872, his Lost Cause movement was then taken up by former Confederate General Jubal Early, future politician John Warwick Daniel, and former Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Eventually, it was adopted by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, who continued spreading the Lost Cause mythology and worked to have it included in local school textbooks. Our county did not vote to join the Confederacy in 1861. In fact, there were people hung here because they refused to fight against the United States. Even though most residents of Randolph County were against the institution of slavery, there were 1,645 enslaved people listed in our county's 1860 census. Literally hundreds of black children were torn from their families and sold as chattel. You can find their names and ages listed in Randolph County property records. Slavery in Randolph County was a human atrocity that started decades before the Civil War, and its ramifications affected the families of enslaved people for generations afterwards. Some of their descendants live here today. Having this statue standing guard outside of county meetings denies dignity for the descendants of enslaved people and ignores those who refuse to fight against the army bearing our nation's flag. When I drive around town, I see some of the same flags that were brandished by the people who attacked our Capitol on January 6th, proudly displayed in front of businesses. I've seen work trucks with stickers of those flags on their tailgates. Other people may choose to spend money at those places, but I don't. In that same vein of thought, businesses and people who are considering a future here see that statue watching over Worth Street. Just like those flags, that statue makes a statement about our city and our county. Does it represent the values of someone who believes we all have a future here together? Does it celebrate the diversity of people who live and work here? I don't believe so. That's why I support this resolution to create a study committee, and I hope that you will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Faust.
Good evening. My name is Clyde Faust, and thank you for your time. I want to apologize to you guys before we even get started. I've talked to many of you over the years of a number of different things, and so I would like to talk to you as friends, but I'm getting older, right? And I'm that guy that will come in front of you and give a presentation, and 10 minutes later, I think about 50 things that I wanted to put in the presentation and forgot. And so what I've done is I've jotted down a few notes to explain or try to convey why this is so important to us. So please, bear with me. Thank you for your time this evening. Tonight, the Asheboro-Randolph County NAACP is asking for your help in correcting a grave injustice in this county. The old saying goes that when we know better, we do better. For many years, we have known that the Confederate monument that stands in front of our old county courthouse was detrimental to the citizens and true history of Randolph County. We are here to ask for your support and endorsing our resolution to the Randolph County Commissioners that a committee of citizens from across the county be formed to look at this issue from all angles, not look at this issue from what the NAACP wants, but listen to people from all sides and come together with a plan that is best suited for Randolph County. Now, I understand that a lot of you knew the information that Susie Scott gave. Later on, I'm going to give you a handout, and in that handout, it's going to have direct quotes from not only Confederate legislators, but from documents that the Confederates created themselves when they wrote, not someone else, when they wrote why they wanted to leave the United States. It's too much for me to try to put into one presentation. So we created a handout that you guys can take home with you. Now, the reason we have to put these undeniable facts in the record is because there are still many in this county, some in government, who choose to act as if these facts don't exist. That is not only unacceptable now, but it is an embarrassment in years to come when historians ask, in the face of such evidence, why did our community refuse to take action? This is especially true in Randolph County. Here, that Confederate monument, and especially its placement, insults so many segments of our community. There are the men from Randolph County who fought, and many died fighting for the United States, not the Confederacy, during the Civil War. One of which, Mr. Howard Gilliam Trogdon, was the first North Carolinian and only citizen from Randolph County to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. Now remember, one of the things that people say is that you can't move the monument because it was erected to honor those who died in war. But we know that's not totally true because they purposely left off those who fought and died in the Civil War but fought for the United States. Next, this monument is an insult to the people who were assaulted, tortured, raped, and some even killed in Randolph County at the hands of the Confederacy. Our county has a rich history that honors our ancestors, a history of men and women who gave aid and comfort to Confederate deserters and runaway slaves. I have to tell you about a young lady that I met. She's in her 90s now, and she talks about how her grandmother and grandfather owned land that hid away Confederate deserters, and those Confederate deserters were executed. But she was talking to her grandmother about, why did you do that? As dangerous as it was, why did you and Grandpa hide away these Confederate deserters? Even back then, her grandmother answered, we did it because it was the right thing to do. Now, I talked to this young lady 3 or 4 times. It wasn't until the last conversation that I got some information that surprised me, that shocked me. I asked her, how did those Confederates find those deserters that were hiding out on your property? Confederates assaulted and abused her grandmother and her great aunt until they gave up the location of where the deserters were, and then they shot them in the head. That grandmother lost 2 nephews who were executed by Confederate soldiers. Those ladies that grandmother and her great aunt were Randolph County citizens. The men they were protecting were Randolph County citizens. And right now, all we have is a 30-foot monument to the people who abused and shot them. And though many would want to, we can't have this conversation without mentioning those individuals enslaved in Randolph County. Our own county records document thousands of slaves bought and sold right here. These records document babies so young they were still nursing, being torn from their mother and sold to someone in a different state. They document little girls as young as 12 or 13 years old being given to white men as birthday and Christmas presents. And repeatedly, we see children torn from their parents because the man that owned them failed to pay a debt. Everyone in this room that's a parent, can you imagine losing your child because someone else didn't pay his bills? That happened right here in Randolph County. And all of this information brings us here tonight because we must ask ourselves, in the face of such evidence, why does that monument still stand in front of a place where our government does business? Sadly, the only thing I can come up with is that our county values the ancestors of the Confederate soldier more than they value the ancestors of those killed by the Confederate soldier. They value the myth of a lost cause over the documented history of those enslaved by a system Confederate soldiers went to war with America to protect. Values such as these do not afford equality to each and every citizen of Randolph County. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we will not stand for. If we are truly a community of equals, if we value diversity and inclusion, then the time has come for us to stand as one community and demand that the monument be moved. Of the 2,000 Confederate soldiers from Randolph County, over 300 deserted, some more than 5 times. At least 14 men were shot or hung for refusing to fight. Many men joined the Confederacy and then crossed over and took an oath of allegiance to the United States as soon as they could. Countless Randolph County families were abused by the Confederate Army, and we know of thousands of slaves who lived and died on Randolph County soil. We cannot call ourselves inclusive. We can't say we value diversity if we place a monument in front of our seat of power that honors one group of people at the expense of others. Tonight, we are asking the Asheboro City Council to stand with us and acknowledge that something needs to be done. That acknowledgement accepts the fact that the monument should not be destroyed. Destroying the monument would also be a denial of our history. Our government, that we are all a part of, demanded those young men join the Confederacy, and we shouldn't act otherwise. We believe there has to be a way to honor the Confederate soldier without forcing the rest of us to honor the Confederacy. That can't happen with that monument sitting in front of the place where our county commissioners meet. Endorsing our resolution is an acknowledgement that we are inclusive, that we value diversity, and that we believe positive change can come when our neighbors sit down together and discuss the issues. Thank you. And I would like to hand each one of you a handout. Now, I was going, because a lot of people haven't seen the slave deeds, I was going to print them out for you, right? It took 50 sheets of paper to print out just one. And so what I did was I gave you each 2 sheets, right? And you can look them up online, Randolph County Slave Deeds, if you want to see the rest. But this is a document that gives the bullet points of why we feel the monument should be moved. The next 3 pages are direct quotes from Confederate leaders, their legislators, and their president and their vice president, discussing why they went to war. And these are statements that were made before the war started, not after the war started when they had already been defeated. And then the last 2 pages are actual slave deeds that you can look up for yourself right here in our Register of Deeds office in Randolph County. And Pastor Triden's going to speak, and then I will be glad to answer any question that you might have, okay? Did I forget one? Did I get somebody too? I'll get you one, Mr.
Bishop Trogdon, welcome, sir.
Hi, it's an honor for me to be here. Mayor Swift, to the council, I have a pulpit, which is what this is called in our church. I have a microphone. You call me bishop, so I feel like I should at least start with scripture. The Bible says this: He has told you, O man, what is good and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. The New Living Translation says, "Know, O people, the Lord has told you what is good, and what is required of you is to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." And our time here tonight is simply for that purpose, just to do what's right. I've been to several of the county commissioners' meetings, and I've just listened, and I'm so grateful for Mr. Faust, because he has shared insights that I thought that I knew that I did not know. So he's been very insightful, and when I listen to the presentations, and I listen to all of the facts, and then all I hear on the other side are sentiments, it just causes me to pause and ask myself, why is this such a difficult decision to make? To me, it only makes sense. Most of you, all of you, know me very well, and I don't credit myself for that, but the one thing that you know about me is there is not a racial bone in my body anywhere. I love everybody, and can preach to anybody. Come to the church, I'll show you. But when you think about everything that's going on, one of the things that I heard when I was at the county commissioners meeting is that to compromise is to lose. But when you look at every statistic, the only population of people that consistently has to compromise is the African American community. You look at housing, you look at health care, you look at education. I read something that kind of affected me because when they finally allowed integration in schools, and again, I'm not talking from any racist place at all, white parents said, I don't want a black person teaching my white child. So an entire profession was affected by that decision. And so when we're told, you need to just get over it, you need to just move on, there's too many things that are still happening that won't allow us to get over it and to move on. All three of my children, from the age of kindergarten to 12th grade, in those 13 years, my 3 African-American children had 2 African-American teachers. How many Caucasian parents can say that they've gone through 13 years of their children's education and not had a Caucasian teacher? You can't do it. So we're constantly told, you need to move on. This didn't have anything to do with us. This is not a part of our generation. But when you're constantly confronted by issues that affect you directly, when we were doing the vaccinations, you know, I constantly heard, I got calls from the health department. We want to do everything that we can to serve the underserved population. The underserved population are generally people of color. So you're constantly told, move on, but you're constantly confronting things that won't let you move on. So at 51 years old, my wife and I decided we're going to go on a date, because we still do that. So we went to a movie. I got me a tub of popcorn. I got me a soda. At 51 years old, I go in to watch this movie called Hidden Figures about people that I had never heard about in my entire life. I'm 51 years old, went through school, did well in school. Never have I heard about these incredible people who made such an incredible impact in our nation. Never heard of them. And when I think about this generation of African-American children and the fact they were denied an opportunity to be inspired by a group of people who are called hidden figures because no one even knew that they existed because they're not in a textbook anywhere. So we have a generation of kids that are constantly being raised not to know the legacy that's been afforded them because they're not taught. So we're told, move on. That was not our generation, but we're constantly confronted with things that remind us. I listened to the story of my father, who we lost in April of this past year. The 50s and 60s, one of the positions that he held in our church required that he travel to different states to do Bible schools and to start churches. And he had to, when he would finish a meeting at night, he would have to drive hours just to find a hotel that would let him sleep on their beds. So when we stand in front of this courthouse, the last 10 years, one of the things that just kind of hit me recently, most of you know that on one season during the year, we have the devotionals out in front of the courthouse for like 6 consecutive Thursdays. For 10 years, I've attended those meetings. In 9 of them, I've been fortunate to be one of the speakers. But in the 10 years that those things have been going on, I can count on one hand the number of African Americans that's attended those meetings. You count at least 70 to 80 people, African Americans, it's been advertised. I have purposed to send it to the churches in our communities. They won't come. Maybe it's because there's a spirit connected to that statute that says to our community, you're not welcome. Maybe that's what it's saying. You're not welcome. So to present a proposal that simply asks that you create this forum, I can only trust that you would do that. Because what does God require? Do justice. Do what is right. Love mercy. Walk humbly with our God. I'm going to sit down, but I'm a preacher, so I get to say it at least 3 times. When I was the director of our Daily Bread Soup Kitchen, there was a businessman that came in. He gave a substantial contribution. He says, but Michael, he says, if I was the president of our Daily Bread, I would ask these people, why don't you just go get a job? He says, Michael, I couldn't do what you do because why don't you just get a job? So in Deuteronomy chapter 7, there's these 7 nations. God said, he said to the children of Israel, you need to destroy these nations because if you don't destroy these nations, they're going to come back and they're going to be a snare to you. And the reason that God told him that is because there was a spirit connected to those nations that would have perverted the nation of Israel. One of those nations was the Perizzite nations. When you study the word Perizzite, it means of a village. And when you study it out, it means they are a people who have very limited vision because they have limited access, so they don't expect anything in life. They don't think that they deserve anything, and because they don't think that they deserve anything, they don't think that their children deserve anything, so they raise generation of kids that don't feel like that they should strive to do anything because they don't feel like they deserve it. So when you have a population that is constantly told to compromise, within the context of that population, you're going to have people that feel like that they don't deserve better, so they don't pursue better. We've got to change the narrative. So what does together look like? Together looks like making a decision that affects everyone equally. That statute, the thing I love about our president, our NAACP president, he has not said tear it down. He hasn't said dismember it. It just should not be sitting where it's sitting. And that is not too much to ask. And it blows my mind that when you sit in front of a group of people, you already sense that their decision has been made before a word has ever been spoken. Something needs to change. And it needs to change now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop.
So, guys, that's it in a nutshell. There's no denying, and we've all seen it, most of you knew it before we even brought it up, but there's no denying why the Confederates went to war. They put it in writing. There's no denying how the Confederacy was handled, or how the Confederacy acted in Randolph County. I found out from Ross Holt, I didn't know this until a few months ago. Did you know that there were never United States soldiers who fired a shot in anger in Randolph County? The only troops that were in Randolph County killing people were Confederates, and they did so at the direct order of Robert E. Lee. When we keep that monument in front of where we have to go to do business with our government, we are saying that we value some citizens over other citizens, and we wouldn't do that if it was any other group. I don't believe we would. And so that's why we need your help. We need your help because we need the county to understand that it's not just the NAACP or the black churches that want this thing moved. It is Randolph County citizens from a diverse part of our population that want them to do something about it. And I will tell you this, they told us to come to them with a plan. Come to them with a plan. Why do we want a commission? Why don't we just give them a plan? 2 reasons. One, it's because we are the population. We are the community. It's our job to come to you and say, hey, there's a problem. You are the elected officials. You should look at that problem and try to come up with an answer. If I see First National Bank being robbed, it's my job to call the police. It's not my job to tell them to send 3 guys in the front, 2 guys in the back, and then send 2 cops on the roof. They will figure out how to do that. And then the second reason that it's important for us to stand together is because we have to say that this is not that monument does not represent who we are. The Vice President of the Confederacy, in a campaign speech, said that the reason that the Confederacy would win the war is because the Confederacy was built on the foundation that the white man was superior to the Negro and that slavery was his proper form. That would be the foundation of the Confederacy. Imagine being a 16 or 18-year-old kid who went to pay his traffic tickets and had to walk by a monument to an institution that was built on that foundation. That's what I had to do. And that happened when I was 18. But now I'm 50, and there's no way that we can sit here as a county and as a people and say that that's acceptable to ask my daughter to do the same thing when she wants to go talk to the county commissioners. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to speak up and do the right thing. Now, if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Questions? Okay. Mr. Faust, we have a copy of your resolution. We will, each of us, I trust, will study that, talk about it with the manager. We'll schedule a time to have a discussion among the council, and we will see where that takes us.
All right, thank you.
If I may take a point of privilege here, I said this last month, and those of you that were not in the room, I'm going to say again today. Bishop Trogdon invoked the generation, our current generation of young people, and I want to have Maria Faust stand up. Humor me, Maria, please. This is Chip Faust's daughter, and wanted everybody in the room to understand that she has been accepted to the North Carolina School of Math and Science and leaves next week. And she is a product of the Randolph County Schools. I believe you went to Southwest. You're one of my wife's favorite students ever. And she is so proud of you, and we are all proud of you and wish you the best of luck next week when you go off to leave home to see the rest of the world as a student of math and science in North Carolina School. Good luck. Okay. This is the appointed time for the public comment period, and if there's anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address the council on any concerns or issues that you would like to address the council on, now is the appointed time. So, first, Mr. Doula.
Debbie, can you draw that line?
And I ask that if you speak, you print your name on this list on the rostrum here, and that is to transcribe the tape with the correct spelling of your name. They're not all as simple as Bill Doula.
Not that Bill Doula is a simple man.
Yeah.
I'll put my telephone number down here too. Good afternoon, council members. I wrote a little speech, and it really sounds hokey, so I'm not going to use it. I'd like to put a disclaimer in. If I use the word man, I'm referring to bipedal, carbon-based life forms, no specific race, gender, everybody, human beings, Homo sapien. I have talked to some of you about this, and some of you don't know anything about it. We've spent $3.8 million to put down turf on the field down there. We have a skate park down here. We have a community arts guild. We have all this. It is my belief, and I know it for a fact, that there's some of us that have to make things with our hands. That we have to have that feedback, whether it's building a building, fixing a chair, making something in a shop, even if you're just working in a furniture factory, which we've all ran out of town, or in a hosiery mill. You're making something. People have that desire to make something. I know that people get a lot of satisfaction out of ones and zeros. I don't. I would like to see the city do something, and not just for the kids, but for the people that have moved out of their house with the garage and everything like this, has got a shop, that are moving into these apartments back here where they can go and have access to some tools if they want to fix something, if they want to make something that they can learn. I have talked to the county commissioners, and they're going to have at the, what I call the rope roping facility, the county ag
center.
Yeah. They're going to have a digital workshop. Digital workshop means you're playing on computers. I've talked with Mr. Lale about the Lux Pinto bean factory down there, and I think the thing that sticks in my mind, they're wanting $45,000 to build a ramp, a handicap ramp to get into it, and $150,000 for this. Everything is just over the top. You don't have to have all that. I wrote down a list of some of the things that you would need. A roof. Walls would be nice, but not necessary. Electricity would be nice, but you can do a lot of stuff with hand tools. Workbenches. I guarantee you I could scrounge enough material out of this project over here to build a half dozen workbenches. And the ability to scrounge through the county's junk. Thomas Alva Edison once said, and I'm not a big fan of Edison because I think he took the credit for a lot of other people's work. He said an invention starts out as an idea standing in front of a bunch of junk. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think we need to really think about trying to do something. If you want to do it for the kids, have a summer program where they can learn to make stuff. If you can have something for a person to come in that wants to work on, whatever they've got to work on. But there's a place in Greensboro called The Forge, and I know you've been up there. I think it's a really good example of what can be done. But it's kind of like California. Look at it and then do the opposite. Because I looked on their thing before I came down here. You have to be a member, and I was wanting to take this one class. Just to take the class is $90. A lot of people don't have $90 to throw away. They don't have $65 a month to spend to be able to go and do something. They also said that they had to, if you came in, you had to be checked for your temperature if it was over 100.004, or if you had an O2 below 97. Gentlemen, I've got an O2 meter at house. I haven't had a 97 O2 in 10 years. So we need to look at it. I really would, and I'd love to meet with each one of you. I won't buy you as good a lunch as Mr. Burke, but I'll buy you lunch. It'll probably be at Hops. But I'd like to talk to you about building something, getting something started. I know you'll never let me use it because I don't live in the city, but I pay city taxes for the last 49 years. In fact, I want to tell you, 46 years ago, I bought a farm on a dirt road way out in the county where I never have to worry about the city coming out there. And you keep wanting to get in my backyard.
Yep.
Every time I turn around, you want to get in the backyard.
You're touching the city limits now, aren't you?
Huh? Yeah.
Yep.
So, but just look about it.
So
Think
what
about
you're
it.
asking us to study is an affordable makerspace.
An affordable place. I don't workshop makerspace. I don't care what you call it.
Yeah.
Call it a junkyard. I don't care. That's where I get most of my stuff at anyway. We refer to Crampers Outdoor Hardware if you've ever been up there. But yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. You guys, huh?
That was good.
What? Oh, my wife when we had the landfill, where we just dump stuff, my wife wouldn't let me go by myself.
Bring home more than you took.
Yeah.
Since Mr. Dooley used my name and said he bought me lunch, we did eat at David's, and the taco salad I bought was $8. He bought for me was $8.49. So thank you for that, and I will return that favor to you at another date, as we just haven't been able to get together.
I'm a big fan of hops and Dixie down here.
Welcome, Mr. Russell.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm going to keep it real short. So we got a couple of major projects going on in the city. One is McCrary Park. The other one is the Zoo City Complex. And I know the original on the McCrary Park was around $10.5 million. I don't have budget numbers on the Zoo City Complex, but I think we heard last week that costs are going up 5% a quarter. One other comment my neighbor heard was that the total cost of McCrary was $17 million right now. So I think we need to have, well, then I'll correct my neighbor, but well, that actually supports what I'm getting ready to say. We need to have real-time budget numbers on these projects, and they need to be posted on the website. We need to know what's going on so that we can ask questions about it. And I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll create an original budget, revised budgets, and then real-time actual dollars that are being spent so that the people of the community can know that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Next, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if our portion of the agenda is over, I think we'll probably get out of.
I'll give you a minute or so to slip out.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Ms. Andrews.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good school year. Stay inside. Let me know what's going on.
Okay, you playing football? When did you? Okay. Good, man. I'll see you when you come down here and get going.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, good to see you.
Hey, stop inviting me to your events. All right. Anyone else that wants to address the council tonight? Okay, Chief Summers. Asheboro Fire Chief Willie Summers will present the annual report for the fire department.
Excuse me 1 second. I gotta get the coat. Trevor said it was cool in here. I didn't want to sweat.
You don't have to. Now it's official. You don't have to dress up for us.
Well, let's see here.
It's hard to enforce the uniform SOP if you don't lead from the front. isn't it?
This is absolutely true. Absolutely true. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Ogburn. As always, it's a pleasure to be here this evening and present Asheboro Fire Department's 2021 annual report. I'm proud to say and pleased to say that Asheboro Fire Department is now Asheboro Fire and Rescue Department. We were certified through the North Carolina Association of Rescue and EMS. Asheboro Fire Department operates on 3 core values: emergency services, fire prevention, and emergency preparedness. Now, when we look at emergency services, the first thing comes to mind is fire. Only 2% of our call volume actually relates to fire. 58% of our call volume is emergency medical. We also respond to hazardous material, rescue incidents. But we pride ourselves on our work with the community to reduce and minimize the effects of fires and other emergencies. We have a robust smoke detector program. We will provide and install smoke detectors for any citizen in the city of Asheboro. In addition, if needed, we will provide them with a carbon monoxide detector as well. Last but not least, we have emergency preparedness, preparing the public for an event and recovering from that event in a timely manner. Asheboro Fire Department, how do we accomplish our mission? We accomplish our mission through these resources. 2 fire stations located strategically throughout the city of Asheboro. We have 54 firefighters in operation and suppression. That's 18 firefighters per shift. Currently, we are 2 firefighters short. We have 8 in administration and support, 3 fire engines on the front line, 1 area device, 1 rescue, 1 command vehicle. In addition, we contract with 4 Randolph County volunteer fire departments for emergency response. And this is including Asheboro Regional Airport. We maintain a plethora of certifications. Currently, we're working on trench rescue, and in the future, we'll start working on our swift water rescue certification to better serve the citizens of Asheboro.
So Chief, you may want to tell them that during the workday, if you go back one, that's what those core certifications, those core performance standards are what we train on all the time to perform our mission when the horn goes off.
Yeah, that's how, well, in terms of accomplishing our mission, we have to meet all these objectives here in these certifications. And we are continuing to enhance our certifications, knowing that in the future, there may be some resources that we've relied on in the past that may not be available. So we are being proactive at Asheboro Fire Department. Quite often, people ask us, why do you guys conduct live burns? It's twofold. Enhanced situational awareness under actual fire conditions. It's an opportunity for the firefighters to learn to read the fire and read the smoke conditions. This will enhance their ability to exit a fire in the event that something goes south. Number 2 is to collaborate with code enforcement for the health and safety of our community, as well as the beautification of our community. Quite often, these facilities are somewhat dilapidated. Demand for service. In 2019, we responded to 4,200 calls for service. 2020, 3,671. 2021, 3,423. You see a slight decrease. That can be contributed to the pandemic. We cut back on our Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie calls. Those are essentially non-emergency calls. For example, lifting assistance. Our busiest month was August with 446 calls for service. Here recently on August the 2nd, C-Shift ran approximately 24 calls for service. That's pretty significant. We spent approximately 30 to 40 minutes on each call. The busiest time of the day, 4 o'clock, 1,600, 226 calls for service. The busiest day of the week, Friday, 538 calls for service, followed closely by Wednesday with 524 calls for service. 58%, as I alluded to earlier, is medical calls. 2% are fires. Now, 2%, we contribute that to the 3 E's: education, enforcement, and engineering. That has helped us reduce our fire calls.
Chief, one question on that. It said good intent?
I'm sorry. Oh, good intent. Good intent is we get a call to a fire alarm sounding. And say it was in the school system and the child happened just to walk up next to the alarm system and
Got it.
he or she pulled it.
Okay.
That's good intent.
Okay.
B shift was
It worked that way.
B shift was the busiest shift, 1,168 calls. That equates to approximately 9 calls per day. And as I alluded to earlier, we spent approximately 30 to 45 minutes per call on the scene. This number we are extremely proud of. Total saves, 14,585,000. The average loss, $10,194. Or a total loss of $387,390. That is pretty significant. Since 2014, Asheboro Fire Department has been credited with 78 CPR saves. You see, I still got AFD. I'm still getting to Asheboro Fire and Rescue. COVID-19, make no mistake, is still with us. In 2021, 70 of our calls for response was suspected COVID-19. 60 were confirmed. And we had 920 was unknown. Now, unknown could have been a vehicle accident, and we treated the patient, and he or she decided they did not want to be transported to a medical facility, and we constitute that as unknown. Now, why do I have overdose over there? Overdose is still prevalent in our community, like it is throughout the country. We responded to 117 overdoses, and that's pretty significant. Response times. Our average response time is 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Mr. Moffitt, the last time I was here, you said I need to work on that. And our average turnout time is 1 minute. Now, there's a direct correlation between the turnout time and our response time. The quicker we can arrive on the scene, the more likely we're to have a positive outcome. Promotions. We are extremely proud of these young men and women. They are the future of Asheboro Fire Department. Now, if you look to your far left, retired Battalion Chief Brian Lewis kind of sneaked in this picture. Obviously, he wasn't promoted. But we miss him just the same. Sir?
I bet he would beg to differ.
But we are extremely proud of these young men and women. If you give me a moment, I'd like to just read out their name, if you don't mind. Captain Pete Sulzer, Engineer Austin Parks, Battalion Chief Matthew Needham, Captain Robert Hurley, Division Chief Frankie Kelly, Fire and Life Safety Educator Samantha East, Engineer Dakota Branton, Captain Roger Wilson, and Battalion Chief Benjamin Hicks. These young men and women will, and they are the future. We had a couple of retirees. To the far left is Jason Jones. He dedicated 24 years of loyal and dedicated service to the community of Asheboro and Asheboro Fire Department. I'm not sure who that other individual up there is, but he's kind of sharp. And to the right is Miss Janet Williams. She was an RN here, and she also dedicated 24 years of service to the community.
And a great cook.
Yes, she is. I mean, it's awesome, is it not?
Great person, too.
Yeah, she is. And both of them will be missed.
Yeah.
This is our Explorer program. Keeping in mind, it's in its infant stage. We didn't get the number of participants that we would like to have had. However, the ones that chose to participate, they thoroughly enjoyed themselves. And kudos to Samantha East, Fire and Life Safety Officer Samantha East. She's heading up this program. A fact on the Explorer program, there were more females in the program than there were males. We enjoy getting out in the community. In fact, we pride ourselves in getting out in the community and being part of the community. We pride ourselves in being working with our fellow departments. We have a great working relationship with APD. And on the right, I think that's the mayor enjoying the festivities as well.
You know what I was doing there. The glasses I'm wearing was simulating a smoke-filled room, and I'm trying to put a puzzle together. Completely blind.
It's hard, isn't it?
Impossible. That little guy beside me there beat me about 5 times.
I thought it was 6. It was 5.
Every bit of it.
I'd like to thank the council for providing us with the resources to renovate Station 1. We're in the process of renovating it currently. You can see the before picture and the after picture in the kitchen, and it is quite a transformation. In the bedrooms, we took up all the carpet and laid down laminate flooring, and this is a way to minimize contaminants getting into the bedrooms. We also painted the walls, new lighting, and new mini blinds as well. And I'd like to thank the council. Hopefully, we will add the longevity to the fire stations. You know, last year we renovated Station 2, so we're in the process of renovating Station.
And those are the beds in those closets, right?
Yes, sir.
And-
Those are what we call Murphy beds.
And each firefighter has his own bed. He does not share a bed with somebody else, right?
That's correct. He or she has their own bed.
The shift changes, the bed changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right. The Relief Fund. In 2021, Asheboro Fire and Rescue Relief Fund awarded over $1,700 in educational scholarship money. In 2022, the board graciously agreed to raise the scholarship fund from $500 to $750 per firefighter. I would like to thank Ms. Reeves and Mr. Burks for their leadership. They serve on the board. Thank you. Certainly appreciate it. What are our goals for 2023? The #1 goal is build fire station number 3. We're in the process of searching for land as I speak tonight. I'm working with Mr. Trevor, and we're looking at some land. And hopefully, we'll be able to finalize and secure some land here shortly. We also want to complete Phase 3, which consists of the administration office at Station 1, the training room, the apparatus floor, and the state-of-the-art gymnasium, or gym, workout facility. Continue to add specialized certifications, hazmat tech, trench, confined, swift water rescue, to better serve the community of Asheboro.
And us, almost all the trench work done and confined space done in the city limits is done by the city.
Yes.
Because we're always working underground and in confined space, manholes.
And this is true.
Wet wells, pump stations.
And we're trying to be proactive. We don't want to wait for an incident to occur before we make that change. We know quite often tragedy is the spur to change, but we want to get ahead of it. Implement unit dispatch. Now, unit dispatch is based on the closest unit and not the response district of that unit. If we are able to implement unit dispatch, it would enhance our response time, thus enhance our service delivery to the citizens. Upgrade our alerting system. Currently, if Station 1 receives a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, it also wakes up Station 2. And we know sleep deprivation is a challenge in the fire service. So now we're working on a system where if we wake up Station 1, Station 2 can continue to sleep through that alarm. So those are our goals for 2023. Last but not least, we've had the opportunity to upgrade our badges, or should I say redesign our badges to make them more personal. If you look at that badge closely, at the very bottom, you will see the employee's number. So all their numbers will be inserted in the badges now, and they can pass it down to a loved one, a family member. So we are extremely proud of that, and Captain Woods and the Uniform Committee came up with that design. Kudos to them. Are there any questions?
Chief, your response time is the envy of NASCAR. I applaud you for that.
You know, I'm from Hamlet, so I right there in Rockingham, up to the racetrack.
And hopefully they'll be racing there again soon.
I believe they are. I do believe.
Any questions? Chief, we're proud of you.
Thank you.
Proud of your new certification as fire and rescue. We got great guys down there, and you're doing a wonderful job. Appreciate it.
Thank you. They are some outstanding firefighters, and they work diligently, knowing that this will be a benefit and service to the community. A lot of this training is taking place on their own time, away from the fire station. And that's the dedication that these individuals are exhibiting. And they are, especially our older firefighters, you know, they have really stepped up to the plate and provided that leadership, that informal leadership, if you will.
Starts at the top.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief, on your opioid calls or overdose calls.
Yes, sir.
EMS brings, or you want to explain to council how the Narcan and all?
Well, currently, when we arrive on the scene, and if we use our Narcan, because Narcan is really expensive. It is truly expensive.
And we use the nasal spray.
The nasal spray. We use, not the shot, the nasal spray. And once we use it, EMS typically will resupply us with that. It doesn't happen all the time, but for a majority of the time, they do replace that Narcan. And it's extremely expensive, but it's a valuable tool and resource to have.
It's my understanding we've had, on occasion, the same person overdose in one day, bring them back with Narcan, and they refuse treatment, and they have, after lunch, made the same call.
Unfortunately, that's a true statement, and you see that trend, not just here, but that's a trend that you see throughout the country. The individuals know that we will be there, and we'll be there in a timely manner to deliver the Narcan.
Yeah, tough way to live. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great job.
Okay, HR Director Doug Kemp, come on in, Mr. Kemp, and bring our new safety director with you.
Chief Summers is a tough act to follow. Mayor, council, thanks for having us today. I just want to introduce our new safety manager, Brad Dalkey. As y'all know, Steve Pay retired as of the end of last month. After 14 years, I think, doing the safety manager job, and he was an excellent safety manager. I've told y'all before, he was the best one I've ever worked with in all my working career. And so Brad's got big shoes to fill, but he's already hit the ground running. He's already got more certifications than, I mean, he's I don't even know what all he's already got. He's always on the computer taking these classes, getting certifications. He's taking this job seriously. He's got a great background. He worked at Klausner for 20 plus years. Just a really good organized manager, and he will do a great job for the city of Asheboro, and we're tickled to have him.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and look forward to working with you guys.
It's a never-ending daily job. Thank you for taking it on.
It really
Welcome
is.
aboard, Brad.
Thankless job, too. Thankless job. But happy to have him.
Why can't I hang from
I'd
this
like to
tree?
say-
I can reach it.
That's right.
I'd like to say, I've known Brad for a long time. His grandmother lived next door to me, and he now has her house. And I don't know who's working on the house right now because he's here. But he's there well, not all the time because really he works.
Oh, yeah.
But often I will see him there before he goes to work. He'll be there at 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier.
Well, earlier, because he's in our office by 7 most mornings.
Well, it's close. It's close by. So, Brad, just so everybody will know, where'd you go to undergrad school?
Up in Western Carolina.
Good man. Good man.
Just throw that in there for the
Just threw that in as an alumni board member. You know, I just thought I'd throw that out.
He's also pretty proud of his Southwest Randolph status, too. I get that in my face a lot during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Brad, thank you. Good to have you.
Next, I want to bring up Kristen Terry, and I think she's got Major Hanson and Captain Wagner with her to talk about the NC for Me presentation they went to a couple weeks ago. It basically has to do with, it's an organization that helps businesses find help from veterans.
Good evening. So I'll just say a few words, and then I'll let Captain Wagner and Major Hanson say what they got out of the experience. So in July, Captain Wagner, Major Hanson, and myself attended a presentation at RCC from the CEO of NC for Me. Her name is Kimberly Williams. NC for Me stands for North Carolina for Military Employment. So it's an organization that matches military veterans to public and private sector employers. The employer is given a free career connection coordinator, and you tell them what type of talent you need, and they match you with a veteran that is retiring. The candidates range from people that have served that from 4 to 8 years. So those people leave with no benefits. And though they're searching for certifications, career development, and then you have your high-ranking officials that have served, like 30 years. Actually, the COO of the NC Department of Commerce Workforce Solutions is an Army veteran, and he was matched with NC for Me and got his position that way. So the organization has offices in almost all North Carolina bases. They hold networking, socials, career fairs, and what they call hiring events, where the candidates are already pre-screened and matched up with employers. So they really just come there to meet and get hired. They're not just job fairs. Pike, MetLife, Cisco, Lowe's Hardware, Spectrum, and Truist are some of their biggest supporters, especially Pike. They actually pledged to hire 10,000 veterans from NC for Me, so they work together really closely. Major Hanson, you want to go first?
Yeah. Good evening. My name's Jay Hanson. A few weeks ago, Mr. Ogburn forwarded an email about this opportunity, this little training opportunity. So Captain Wagner and I spoke about it. It's no secret in the last couple of years we've had some real challenges with recruiting and getting officers getting applicants to apply. And we thought this might be a valuable opportunity to get some more information on connecting with veterans and maybe increasing our recruiting numbers. So we went there, and it was really a good presentation. I didn't know what to expect prior to attending, but they had a lot of good information, and we all know about the different military installations throughout our state, but I really had no idea. North Carolina actually has the third largest Department of Defense presence in the country. What that means is there's a large pool of veterans who are getting out of the service that are going to be looking for employment, and this could be an excellent opportunity to tap into that. One of the things, I got a couple of points that I took away from it, but according to Dr. Curtis Gilroy, he's Director of Accessions Policy for the Department of Defense, 75% of young Americans are not eligible to join the military. The primary reasons for this is failure to graduate high school, having a criminal record, physical fitness issues, and inability to meet minimum ASVAB scores. And what I found kind of interesting, a lot of these things are things that we have to deal with when we're recruiting. And so if a veteran leaves the military and we can pull them into the law enforcement side, a lot of these things have already been addressed. If they've been in the military, that we can be assured they don't have the significant criminal record and that kind of thing. And so it's kind of an excellent opportunity to pre-screen applicants. In addition, obviously the military is very similar to what we deal with in law enforcement. They understand things like chain of command, discipline issues, the rank structure, and all that kind of thing. So they really go hand in hand. One of the things they noted too was that 65% of veterans have some college education, meaning that veterans tend to be more educated than their civilian peers. In addition to that, 68% of employers rate veterans' performance as better than or much better than their civilian peers. So that's kind of some interesting numbers there, and something you certainly would like to see in our line of work. And then lastly to that, 57% of veterans, as you see on the PowerPoint there, stay at their jobs longer than average civilian personnel. So again, if we can get somebody in the door who's more committed and is willing to stay, and that longevity really pays off. So, and then finally, another aspect that I would have never thought of, but military spouses provide a benefit to the community as well. So obviously, in most cases, if you hire a military veteran coming out, a lot of times they're going to be bringing with them a spouse. And the U.S. Department of Labor notes that 89% of military spouses have some education, 30% have a bachelor's degree, and 15% have an advanced degree. And then in addition, 30% of military spouses are underemployed. So if we draw veterans to our community, they bring with them their spouses who bring a lot to the table too and can provide some benefits to the workforce throughout our community. So that's kind of a double win there. So with those things in mind, I just think it'd be very beneficial to increase our efforts to recruit from the military population. Our veterans have a lot to offer to our community, and helping them transition into their new life would be a way to recognize their service while reaping the benefits of their knowledge and their experience. So it was a good training. I think it was something that we could benefit from, and definitely something we should probably look into. Thank you.
Major Hanson.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you do your undergraduate?
I did my undergraduate, sir, at Appalachian State University.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Where is that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Mayor, just following on with the military, our workforce is, our workforce is about 10% veterans. You never know who you're run into in the service and meet later. Mr. Sprouse and I saw each other one day across a training field and didn't realize we were in the same division together. Turns out we were.
That's right. We kept everybody safe.
That's right.
Captain Wagner, go ahead, sir.
Thank y'all for having us today. Like I said, much like Chris said and Major Hanson had already said, it opened my eyes to some other things. I thought of military as simply artillery and, things of that nature and just survival operations. But when the instructor was speaking, we was talking, there's so much more involved in it. There's people there who manage warehouses, after the MOS after that. There's people who operate heavy equipment. There's logistics specialists and mechanics. All these, after these military jobs, can filter down into a city government or things of that nature, or the private sector. So, I had to think more than just, G.I. Joe type stuff and think, hey, there's a lot more to this. So made some notes on that, and they receive extensive training in these fields. And this requires, and, this is big us at the police department, Chief Lineberry always, talking about goals, is they set and achieve goals more than their civilian counterpart. They have a purpose. Military, they have a purpose, and I think they instill that in them. And much like I want to speak on the law enforcement side, that's what we have. We have a purpose, and we'd love to have that military mindset. And meet deadlines. Very important for deadlines. We have that in the law enforcement aspect. And achieve desired results. I believe that's a big thing for, especially in the police department or the fire department. First responders. Don't want to steal nobody from another AC, but we will. But and veterans are also, and they also have high emotional intelligence. I had to look a lot of that up. I had to go to Appalachian, so I had to look that up. And it's really just basically, understanding it's very important in a leadership role in law enforcement is just high emotional intelligence. And that's able to read and understand people. That's a lot of our job is reading and understand people. It's not most anybody's job. In the day and age we live in, the new generation coming in, they want to be understood, not just told. So, they get a lot from that. And also relationship intelligence. They get a lot of that in the military, and that's a teamwork approach. And that's very important in police work, is teamwork. So, and summing it up, and I know you have a long agenda, but, the military members are trained, they use weapons, survival tips and all that, but they also take away from that how to handle stress, just like I'm trying to handle stress up here talking to you. Coping with change, and that's the big thing. In today's workforce, there's a lot of change and a lot of coping with change. Lead effectively and work well with others as a team. And so, the military, like I say, a lot of correlation between us, law enforcement, and, as far as fire department and things of that nature, EMS, but we'd like to have them first. So if y'all have any questions for me or the major, he's still here, so thank y'all for your time. I hope we gave you something from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
So I'll just wrap it up by saying there's, you'll see the statistics there that Ms. Williams gave us for the transitioning service members coming out of North Carolina, and they have to go somewhere. Not all of them are interested in just being retired. Some of them still need jobs and careers after they serve. So one of the things that she said we could start doing was putting on our website that we hire veterans, or we are, you know, we value veterans. And so I had talked to Trevor about it. We've been going back and forth with different marketing things. So I'm looking at changing our tab there on our website. We're going to put a new picture now that we have Brad, and we're also going to put something there about how we value veterans, and they can come and talk to us. That'll be like our first step. Any questions?
Will we be given access to any of these retiring, do they have like job fairs as they're transitioning out of military that we could attend, or?
Well, if we decide to partner with NC, for me, it's completely free. But if we decide to partner with them, they give us our own career counselor, and that's the only way that we can get access onto bases. And then there's also a website, there's a whole system where we put in what we're looking for, and they try to match someone with us. And since all the skills don't transfer, they're actually working with the community colleges to make the BLET program where they'll have credits whenever they retire that'll go towards their BLET certification and help them be police officers easier.
What is involved in becoming affiliated?
Just let them know.
Sounds cheap enough.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you very much. Good luck with that. I think that's gonna open some doors for us.
Thank you. Well, I guess that's about it from the HR department today, so unless you have any questions about anything else.
Sounds like great progress being made. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Mr.
Thank
Kemp.
you.
See y'all.
Okay, council, you have in front of you the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda you'd like to remove for individual discussion or consideration? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda, all opposed. Consent agenda is approved. Mr. Nuttall, item 9A, status report on the ongoing update to the land development plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quickly, we wanted to give council an update on where we're at in the effort to update the city's land development plan. This is actually a project that we commenced back in late 2019. The steering committee was formed. We got a couple meetings in with that group, which is a great group, a committed group of individuals. We had terrific discussion, and then, of course, the pandemic struck. And while we attempted to continue that process virtually and through different means, it very much slowed our progress in getting the information that we needed and the input that we needed. At the end of 2021, everybody was finally comfortable enough to reconvene the group as the public health environment was improving. So at this point, we are nearing the end of what we think is the draft of that plan, which will be then presented to council. At this point, we've had 5 committee meetings. There has been a lot of other work that has gone into this in terms of public participation. There was a series of focus group conversations that were held with community leaders and representatives. There was pretty extensive public surveying, and we had decent turnout and responses to the public surveys that we released. We have done what we could in terms of updating existing conditions maps and infrastructure while while we were in the middle of the pandemic. We prepared with the committee a vision statement that will guide the rest of this process. And there are recommendations that are emerging in terms of city development, future growth, and land use, and goals for the plan. So on the screen is what has evolved from the committee's work. I won't read that to you, but you can see that is the statement in front of you there. A big part of this, as you know, as we talk about land use applications that come before council, are the mapping components of the document. One of the important ones that we turn to is what's known as a growth strategy map. This is a map that classifies different areas based on the presence of city services and the suitability for development. This, as you know, helps to serve as a guide as we consider applications for development, can help to indicate to property owners and prospective developers what level of support they might expect to find from the city. It's used, it's not a standalone map, it's used in conjunction with other elements of the plan. And as you know, it's referenced in every land use case that we present to you. There are categories within that growth strategy map. Many of these will look familiar to you. I'm not going to read them, but through discussions with the committee, we have identified some new categories, one of which is separating our primary growth area, which traditionally has just been what is current corporate limits, into 2 tiers. So that we can provide different levels of encouragement of always encouraging development within the primary growth area, but within those areas that are low to moderate income or otherwise known as qualified census tract that would benefit from investment, we are proposing to have a targeted primary growth area within the city. These categories will largely are recommended to continue pretty consistently with how the current plan identifies them. But of note, we do believe that there is going to be some study areas that come out of this plan because we want to wrap up this part of the land use planning process. But we believe that there is going to be 2 areas in particular that probably are going to warrant some more focused, smaller land, small area plan projects, one of which is NC Highway 49 study area. We've had quite a bit of interest in the 49 corridor. So obviously, it's an important gateway into the city. We have utilities in that area, but there are some challenges in terms of future land use on that corridor. So that is an area that we think we will probably present to you as one where we need to do more of a focused planning study on that area. The other is North Carolina Zoo study area. Because as you know, with the bypass and the zoo connector, there are now different opportunities available to property owners in that portion of the city. And the city has some real interest, as does the zoo, in terms of how those areas develop. And so instead of trying to navigate through what those different interests are and make a recommendation, I feel like we will identify those as study areas and come back to them in a future year to further refine those recommendations. On the map is, on the left is the current growth strategy map, and on the right is a draft. And we do expect these maps to change. I will say that right now. But it gives you an idea of the various growth areas as the staff projects where the city may grow. Big difference between the current plan and the proposed map is we are making recommendations beyond our jurisdictional area with the updated map. That helps to give the public an idea of where is the city expecting growth to occur and give some folks some assurances in terms of what they can expect over the next 15 to 20 years, at least as we see it now. So as you look at comparison between the current and the new maps, again, those current maps only reflect our zoning jurisdiction, corporate limits, and extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. There's only one primary growth area. There is no comment now based on relative to how the Highway 64 bypass is affecting land use in that corridor. So there are no study areas that are identified. As you look to the new growth strategy map, we are, again, making recommendations beyond our jurisdiction. We have those tiered growth strategy areas, and we are making recommendations related to the Highway 64 bypasses and the importance of those bypasses. Similarly, probably the next important map in this, most important map in this plan is the future land use map, which provides those guidelines and recommendations related to land use. As you know, there's a variety of uses that this plan identifies, from residential all through heavy industrial. There are descriptions provided for each designation. Again, a big component of what we present to you in terms of our staff reports on land use applications. Similar to the growth strategy map, we do plan, and with talking through this with the steering committee, do intend to make recommendations beyond our current jurisdictional area. These are not binding. There's not a regulatory component of these plans, but it does attempt to articulate what the city's vision is for land use over the next, again, 15 to 20 years. So very similar to the growth strategy map. On the screen kind of details the differences where we think this is going to end up, at least when it comes to you for consideration. There are not just maps that are contained within the land development plan. There are specific goals and policies and objectives that will be articulated. As it stands right now, the 5 goals that have been consistently addressed by the committee and through our surveying and public input phases is housing, economic development, land use, transportation, community resources, and facilities. So there will be specific goals and policies that are in draft form now that will attempt to identify what that ultimate goal for each of those themes is and how do we get to those specific outcomes. So the next steps is we have some finalizing to do with the committee. We do anticipate having community meetings, at least 2 community meetings, where we can give a more in-depth presentation of what I'm doing here this evening to let the public know that this is moving forward towards the adoption phase. We'll gather that final input, see if there's any adjustments that are warranted, come to the planning board and the council for adoption this year. So that's the plan on this project. Happy to answer any questions, but you can expect to see some additional information on this over the next couple months.
Trevor?
Yes?
How did the news about Toyota influence this process or affect this process?
It's a terrific question. In many ways, I think we were blessed that we did not get this rushed through because of the announcement that occurred late last year. And so we actually dedicated half a meeting of the steering committee to talk about those implications, how that may change the analysis that had already been done and the thinking that had already been done. So there was some recalibration, I think, that went on in terms of where those growth areas might be. So it was helpful in the sense that we were delayed to have that news to incorporate that into the plan. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. You have 9B, the authorization to contract with Piedmont Triad Regional Council.
Yes, sir. Real quickly, Mayor, at the last council meeting, I informed council of our intent to work with the regional council to pursue grant funding for construction of the Gerald Center City Garden. In your packet should be a proposal PTRC has provided to us, which after our review we think is reasonable and includes the services necessary to obtain funding to build this project. We think there'll be some minor adjustments to that, but nothing affecting scope or delivery of those services. So the PTRC will help the city staff to advance that master plan that has been prepared. There's a community involvement component of this. There's a permitting involvement included with this, and they will help us to manage any subcontractors that are necessary as we go through the final planning and design process. So staff's recommendation is to authorize engagement with the council, regional council, upon final agreement of those changes.
Questions?
I think it's a pretty reasonable fee for the services they offer.
I'll entertain a motion to proceed with that engagement.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we proceed with this engagement.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 9C, another engagement for the Regional Council for Strategic Management Assistance for potential water line extension.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to defer to Water Resources Director Michael Roney to present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Roney.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. Mr. Auburn and I have been in communication in discussions with Randolph County Economic Development Corporation since the beginning of May concerning a potential project going on at the Chatham Advanced Manufacturing Site right on the Randolph County-Chatham County line. Their request to us is, would we be willing to extend water service and sewer service at one time to that site? We've learned that sewer is impossible for us to provide there, but they're still interested in us extending water service to that site. We now know the state budget was approved with a large sum of money granted for potential development there, and that is granted to the city of Asheboro to provide that service. With that, it's a big undertaking for us, and there are several jurisdictions involved. So we have gone to Piedmont Triad Regional Council to seek their guidance. Let me get with you here. And they have given us a proposal that's in your packet to offer us technical assistance, just evaluate our system, what needs to be done, to help us coordinate with the other jurisdictions and partners, including the county. The county is going to be involved in this as well, to help us establish a strategic plan, and then to develop the agreements with all the participants that need to be involved, and then help us to work in getting an engineering consultant to do the entire job. PTRC is going to do all this for $11,000, which is, once again, a really good rate for the work they're providing. And staff does recommend that you authorize entering into this agreement for these services. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Assessment, is the number that the state put in the budget, is that sufficient? Just off the top of your head.
We've seen numbers, and this should be sufficient.
Okay. All right.
Should be.
Should be. Well,
There's a lot of engineering work to be done in balancing those elevations.
Yes.
That's the bigger money as opposed to pipeline, I think.
And we still need to evaluate our entire system from storage to treatment to distribution, just to make sure we can handle everything. So that's all involved in this work.
All right, great. I'll entertain a motion for this engagement also.
Mayor, I move we approve this engagement with Piedmont Triad Regional Council.
Motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. 9D, update on the qualification-based selection process underway for environmental site assessment for Acme Purchase.
Thank you, Mayor. As council knows, in 2018, the Acme McCrary Hosiery Mill property was identified in the city's central business district redevelopment plan as a structure that was in need and worthy of preservation and some sense of adaptive reuse to preserve that structure and put it back into good purpose. And Fortunately, this year, at the city's request and via support from the General Assembly, and importantly, with help from the Randolph County Legislative Delegation, funding was received from the state of North Carolina. The intent of that funding is to allow the city to acquire the property to ensure that this historic structure, which is listed on the National Register, is preserved and appropriately repurposed. With that funding, in this early summer, the city began due diligence, commissioned an Alta survey, and just recently has released the RFQ for Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments if a Phase 2 study is needed. At this point, those proposals are due on August 17th. As we think about the project goals overall, we will review those proposals with a goal of awarding a contract on or before August 26th. So we are wanting and needing to move pretty quickly through this process. The goal is to complete the property acquisition by the end of this year if there are no significant issues that are identified by that ESA or any matters that come up through the survey. This will secure, if we can move forward, secure a vulnerable structure in the heart, obviously, of downtown and facilitate redevelopment of the property, most likely for a residential use. And so in order to expedite and compress this time frame and allow us to move forward as quickly as possible, provided we get the information that we need, staff is requesting that council delegate to the city manager the authority to award the contract to allow the environmentals to move forward as opposed to waiting until the September City Council meeting, which, as you know, is a week later because of the Labor Day holiday. So the action requested before you is to allow Mr. Ogburn to execute that contract once we've reviewed the proposals.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to recommend this, or to adopt this recommendation to authorize the city manager to award this contract for the environmental assessment, Phase 1 and Phase 2?
If needed.
If needed, okay. May I have a motion?
So move.
Ms. Heath, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. All opposed? I'm sorry. Discussion. There's a ball game going on, guys. I'm sorry. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
When we look at
Does anybody know the score? Can you check with your sister? She's out there.
Yeah, her sister's out there.
That's what I was talking about. Her sister's out there. Okay, 9E, qualification-based selection process authorized by the city manager for a safety and traffic calming study to review the merge of Sunset Avenue and West Salisbury.
Thank you, Mayor. In order to investigate concerns that were recently raised related to safety and traffic matters near the merge of Sunset and West Salisbury Street, which are NCDOT maintained streets, last week the city manager asked the engineering department to consider a qualification-based selection process that would engage a traffic engineer to study the issue that has been presented. Engineering has performed the necessary analysis in terms of that selection process. Due to the limited scope of work that engineering anticipates and more importantly, the estimated fee for such services, City Engineer Michael Leonard requested from Mr. Ogburn an exemption from the standard qualifications-based selection process. That was authorized on July 28th. Essentially, that exemption allows the city staff to directly engage with an engineer or an engineering firm to more expeditiously study the traffic situation. There's no action needed by council on this. We did want to report on what steps we have taken and plan to take to address the concerns that were raised. If there is no objection with this plan, the staff's proposal is to begin discussions with an engineering firm to perform a traffic study to see if there are improvements that can be made.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Trevor,
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Not to get into the weeds, but
Sure.
how long does it take to do a traffic study?
How much is a new car?
Okay.
It will take several months, yeah, to do the traffic counts and the various data analysis that we'll want to do. So it'll be several months.
Mr. Patton, you need to come up here. You talk so softly, I have trouble hearing you. Our engineering intern will request council action on proposed contract for field turf on fields 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packets, before you have for your consideration a contract through the Keystone Purchasing Network between the City of Asheboro and Field Turf USA for the installation of the stone base, curbing, turf, and all appurtenances for fields 5, 6, 7, and 8 on Phase 2 for the Zoo City Sportsplex. The contract price total is $3,897,216.41. There's also an option, a voluntary alternate for goalpost for Field 2 for football. And that will bring the total price up to $3,934,716. The staff recommends approval for the contract by reference.
And that's the 3.897 million,
Yes, sir.
Mayor.
All right. Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve this proposed contract.
All right, Mayor, so as you know, we've let the contract for 2, 3, and 4. You go down there this week, you'll see that they're beginning to roll the work. This is the last 4 fields. And as weather holds, we look to open about Mother's Day. I expect asphalt to go down in September. Power company's down there pulling the rest of the conduit. We can about start the power on the first phase. And it's moving along rather quick now. If you go about once a month, you'll see it. For the first 2 years, nobody saw anything, and now we can't keep the traffic out from people going
We're
to
on top of the
investigate.
ground now.
Yeah, we're going up now, right.
May I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor of approving this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Reeves, you have a budget amendment for that?
Yes, sir. Actually, there are 2 budget amendments in your packet. Spencer presented the contract for $3,897,216,041. We have in the general fund already funded as part of our budget process $1,715,427. So we are short $2,181,790, and I am asking the council to approve by reference an ordinance to amend the general fund appropriating fund balance for that amount as a transfer to the Zoo City Sportsplex Fund to complete the funding necessary for this contract to be executed. Again, the executed amount is $3,897,217 total. So I recommend
Question.
adoption by reference.
I'll entertain a motion. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve this amendment by reference.
Mayor, I move to approve this amendment by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. All in favor, any discussion? I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion is approved.
Okay, the second amendment is an ordinance to amend the Zoo City Sportsplex Fund Now that the funding from the general fund has been approved, moving money to the project fund, we need to recognize the revenue coming into the project fund so that we can set up the expenditure line item for Spencer to actually write his purchase order against. So your ordinance to amend the Zoo City Sportsplex Fund for fields 5, 6, 7, and 8 is for the full amount of the contract, all in appropriation from the general fund, contribution to the Sportsplex Fund. And as I said in the previous, the ordinance to amend the general fund completed that funding. So now we just need to recognize it in the project fund. I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions? May I have a motion to adopt by reference?
Mayor, I move to adopt this ordinance by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Heath? Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. I will open a public hearing on item 12, which is a annexation request pertaining to approximately 7 acres of land on 923 Meadowbrook Road. Mr. Patton.
Council, the item was presented at the last council meeting in July. The resolution has been properly advertised and the public hearing is open.
Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the council regarding this annexation request?
And as always, Mayor, just for the record, the petitioner, the annexation speaks for itself. Petitioner's not required to come and speak.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and move to deliberation. And ask the council for their thoughts on the annexation ordinance. Do you need to make a present? You need to present that?
I just have some word, like some stuff he left.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have an annexation ordinance prepared by the city attorney, Jeff Sugg, and making the annexation effective upon adoption, and the staff recommends adoption by reference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Mr. Sugg. Don't want to overlook your work.
No problem. You're right ahead.
All right. We have I will entertain a motion to approve this annexation ordinance by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve this ordinance extending the Asheboro city limits by annexing approximately 7 acres of land contiguous to the existing primary city limits at 923 Meadowbrook Road.
Oh, that was a mouthful. All right. Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Moffett. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is approved. Item 13, I will open a public hearing on the annexation request pertaining to approximately 20 acres of land in the Timber Ridge subdivision on East Allred.
Again, this item was presented at the July council meeting, and the resolution has properly been advertised and is open to public hearing.
Is anyone in the audience that would like to address the council regarding this annexation request? Hearing none, we'll move to deliberation. Council, what are your wishes?
Mayor, I move we approve this ordinance extending the Asheboro city limits by annexing approximately 20 acres of land contiguous to the existing primary city limits along East Allred Street.
Have a motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion to approve. Motion is approved. I'm sorry. Mr. Sugg,
Yes, sir.
you
This-
have a request of council for a water line extension.
It's actually a connection. The applicant, William Clayton Burra, he extends his apologies for not being here. He planned on attending. He authorized me to say he's recovering from COVID-19, so he asked if I would be willing to go ahead and present his request. And I said, we can do that. So with your permission, I will cover the essence of this. He's wanting to be able to connect to a city water main. He does not fit under the normal exception, which is you've got to be adjoining an existing line. If you don't fit that exception and you're outside the city, unless there's some other specific peculiar fact, topographic or otherwise, and you have to get council authorization. In the absence of that, you have to ask to hook on to both water and sewer and be annexed into the city. His situation, his property's at 307 Patton Avenue, right at the intersection of Thomas Street and Patton Avenue. He has submitted documentation from the Randolph County Health Department showing that the water is not safe to drink on that particular property. He's not asking for access to a city sewer main. He's asking only for access to the water main. The closest water main is on NC Highway 42. Mr. Burrow has been informed that since he's in that area, which is definitely outside the city would not extend a line, would not pay for the cost to do so, would not procure an easement. However, under the city code, the council has the authority, if you enter it into the minutes, to grant him an exemption and allow him to connect to that water line based on the peculiar facts. The peculiar facts in his case are unsafe water to drink. He's not contiguous. The earlier annexation petitions talked about the primary city limits. He's not contiguous to the primary city limits. It makes it a satellite annexation. He has submitted an annexation petition and was willing to come into the city. The problem is he asked one of his neighbors, and you've got a sketch there at your desk. You can see the neighbor who was to his north. That person explicitly authorized to state that he will not sign an annexation petition. And under the satellite annexation rules, if you're in a subdivision, the city has to bring in the entire subdivision in order to be authorized to proceed with that annexation. So under state statute, the city cannot proceed with the annexation. He has talked to the neighbors to the south, and they are willing to grant him, at his expense, a private easement. He's willing to install the line, the water line that would run from a meter set at the right-of-way on NC Highway 42. So he'd be an outside customer. His meter would be at the right-of-way for NC Highway 42. It's his responsibility to run that line through his easement with the permission of those neighbors. And also, he will have to get permission from NCDOT to bore under Thomas Street to get to the property, which he says he's taken all the necessary steps. So he asked for permission to connect to the water line, and I will add, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll add that I would recommend that if you choose to grant him the opportunity to make a connection to the water main on Highway 42, that authorization is valid until December 31st of 2022. He just needs to move ahead so we don't have that sitting out there with uncertainty on the records. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can try.
Looks like in this drawing that there's two lines, 2 meters, and a Betty Clark and Arlene Thomas there are getting water run up to that lot as well. But that's not consistent with the hatch line, but that's what the arrow says.
That's what I asked him about that. That was part of their initial discussion, and I informed him that they would have to go in and come to the city to get a waiver, just like what he's getting to, because they talked about would he go ahead and put the lines in to get permission. It apparently was part of their negotiation, but they have been informed that they cannot get a meter for that second line without coming to the council and doing the exact thing that he is doing now, so they dropped that request. But he said he was going to go ahead and put that line in case they want to come back at some point. So that's why the request tonight is for 1 meter, 1 connection for Mr. Burrow to that property.
Okay, great.
He'd be
Question,
better
other
off with a
questions?
bigger line, but
Am I reading this a 1-inch water line?
That's what he has got, that's what he wrote down on here.
Will that be adequate? I mean,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He'll make a 3/4 tap down there.
okay, all right.
Who's gonna be responsible for the maintenance of that line?
That's the city's responsibility stops at the meter.
It looks like it goes to Miss Skeen's old beauty shop in that mobile home she had.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Boy, am I old.
Like I said, if he shows up and asks engineering for a connection permit, he could not get it without your authorization. That's why he's
Okay.
in front of you.
Council, what are your thoughts? Want to approve this request?
A man in need, I make a motion that we approve.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I will add after comment, this is a prime example of just how screwy our city limits are.
Okay, item 15, our longtime ABC board member, original appointee Brooke Smidley has, reached a point in her, Air Force JAG career where her promotion, is taking a little more time. And, she has decided that she needs to, and motherhood, has decided that she needs to step down from the ABC board, and notified us her term actually expired this week, August. And, for one reason or another, we don't have a named replacement at this point. We should have a replacement to name. We've asked somebody. We've actually asked two people. We're on our third. One just didn't want to do it. The second had a very, very, very limited conflict. And just at that point, we all felt it was wise to probably not put him in that position. And the third person was just asked today, and that's my fault. So we'll have something for you in September. And the good news is, as long as the other two members show up, they can conduct business, even with an empty seat. So we'll have somebody for you at the next meeting. Okay, upcoming events. Tomorrow night, Rock in the Park with Who's Bad, Michael Jackson. We had a huge crowd at the Fleetwood Mac tribute show last month, and we expect tomorrow night to be even bigger. We were pretty much maxed out. We believe Bicentennial probably had just about all the people it would hold. So they've made some rearrangements of the food trucks and tried to cobble together some additional space. So tomorrow night, the opening act starts at 6. The headliner comes on at 8.
And it's cruising. Cruising.
And there's cruising, yeah. And then the Saturday morning is in Bicentennial Park is the Antique Automobile Club of America's annual August show, the one they do downtown every year in August. Last year it was on Fayetteville Street. This year they've decided that they like Bicentennial Park better, so it'll be back in the park on Saturday morning. The Saturday the 20th will be Keep Randolph County Beautiful downtown at 10 a.m. What is that, a trash pickup? All right. August 21st, Summer Concert Series. Mason Lovett downtown at Bicentennial Park, 7 to 8:30. And Chamber of Commerce Retreat is scheduled for October 20th through 22nd. Registration is open, and if you are planning to go, get with Joanne, and she will make your room reservations and register you for the retreat. Planning retreat, and this year's retreat will be just about all about Toyota and preparations for the big changes that are coming with Toyota. And that's based on some actual visits that have been made to Greer and Greenville and Spartanburg at the BMW plant. So there's a lot of information to be gathered at the retreat this year, chamber retreat.
Rooms is pretty good buy.
Hmm?
I went ahead and reserved my room, but they were inexpensive for where they were.
And then Sunset Theater events coming up, summer movies. Finding Nemo on August 16th. Asheboro staged reading of The Pavilion on August 15th. And Sing 2 is August 9th. Those are children's movies. There are movies on Thursdays for adults, 3 movies at the theater on Thursdays. We still got that going on. All right. The Hub actually has a huge full-page calendar in it now with lots and lots of events listed. A pretty comprehensive calendar for Randolph County. Anything else that anybody knows of that we didn't highlight here?
Mayor, just 2 things. The foreclosure of the house on South Cox Street, the Leanin house, is complete. We're waiting on the paperwork, and then it can be removed.
You don't like mud.
Just so people in Asheboro understand, we have not been ignoring that house on Cox Street right there at the intersection of Main and Cox where the rescue squad is. That house that's all but down on the ground has been tied up in a foreclosure and a loan process, and we couldn't touch it until the courts got it all worked out. That has been done, and
Just waiting on now for the paperwork.
we will, once we get the paperwork, that will be one more house that we clean up. And people ride by there and say, oh, that's a shame that the city can't clean it up. Why doesn't the city do something? We've been unable to touch that house until now.
And the other thing I mentioned, Mayor, is the railroad folks were in here this week. They got a demo permit to demolish the freight station, and they're supposed to start Monday.
You
It'll
know,
take about a week.
a lot of people will be concerned that there's another old building being destroyed in Asheboro, and it's unfortunate, but the accidental fire started by whatever homeless people or whoever happened to start that fire just did such damage to it. The railroad wasn't interested in fixing it, so they had the asbestos abated right after the fire, and they're just now getting around to tearing it down. So just be prepared. You will hear from people that say, why? You know, it was just.
It's the railroad.
Yep. All right.
Any movement or luck on the FCX dump site?
Behind it.
Yeah.
They'd move if we gave them a place to move to.
Yeah.
They have a lease with the railroad, and
Gold Hill will take
well, might be worth a conversation with them. I'll talk to Frank about that. Ms. Redding, it's good to see you here. I hope you're feeling better. I hope your mom's better.
Well, that's a challenge. I appreciate all of the kind words and the notes and everything. It's a shame 2.5 years of dealing with people who don't make the best decisions, and you get taken out by a precious 4-year-old little girl. But yeah, we're both healing. We're both healing. So I appreciate the good thoughts.
Good. People, just for the record, COVID is coming roaring back. John and I heard today of some people that we know that have it. So it might be time to break out the mask again. Be extra vigilant, wash your hands, watch who you're in contact with, and try to social distance and do the things that we got kind of in the habit of doing when it was around earlier, because I have a doctor friend whose 40-some-year-old wife just died from it with 4 children. So It is serious. Mr. Burks?
It is serious. I've known 17 people personally who've died from that. 3 family members have died from that. So stay safe, y'all.
Mayor, can I say
Yes,
one thing?
I'm sorry.
I've also had a string of bad luck where I've needed city services, and once again, just, our city is fabulous. We had missing trash can, just disappeared, replaced within an hour.
That's where that can. That can that showed up at my house was yours.
But it went somewhere, because we searched all over for it. And woke up the other night to, we were attempting to water the entire neighborhood and the driveway and the streets and everything else. And the city came and turned us off at the meter, because we couldn't figure out how to do it within, again, minutes. And then a limb down from a tree into Scarborough, and the city came. Honestly, I think it was less than 4 minutes, and they were there, and unfortunately also discovered the yellow jacket nest that was there. But you just can't imagine how quickly and how responsive it is. So nice to have that.
We do have good employees, and service is one of our primary, good service is our primary mission. It's unfortunate we are short a few people right now. We're not quite as fast as we have been in the past, but we do get it done. And so, thank you for saying that. Mr. Burks, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Moffitt?
Look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night, maybe at the Cruise In concert. Pleased with the progress we're continuing to make on our programs.
There is Southeast Regional American Legion tournament being hosted at McCrary Park this week. Yesterday, Asheboro won. They're playing right now. I hope they're going tonight. And it will go right on into Sunday if necessary. It will definitely be through Saturday. Teams from 7 states are here playing. So, Don?
I just add on to that, Mayor. The mayor and I were at the opening ceremonies Tuesday night, and there are 4,000 American Legion teams. 64 make the tournament, and 8 make the American Legion World Series. So we talk about the pyramid, American Legion baseball, that gets pretty steep in a hurry.
Yeah, 8 of the 64 are playing here. There are regionals around the
8
country.
regionals, right.
And there are 64 teams, 8, once they lose in this regional, all the regionals, once they lose 2 games, they're gone. And so by Saturday, there may be 1 or maybe a game Sunday. And that team will go to the World Series in Shelby. And we're hoping that it's Randolph County.
And if you haven't, you can YouTube 1978 post 45 state champions, and you can see what some of our Jane and I grew up with. Right, Jane?
That's right.
That was a good year too, wasn't it?
Mr. Swears.
I'm just glad that the tournament is here, that we're able to showcase McCrary Park in current condition, and next year when they come back, it'll be even better.
I will say that all the coaches and all the players have been greatly impressed with the playing surface that we got in this year, and some of the players went out the other night after the banquet and were rubbing the turf and took their shoes off, and it's nice, and they were impressed.
The mayor and I sat by the umpire table, and I told the guys on the way out, you don't have to take a baseball this year and drop it and see which way it rolls. Determine if that bunt's gonna be in play or not. It's gonna roll straight, true. This evening.
Looks like they got a lightning delay out there.
I was just gonna say, for the greater good of finding out what the score is, I have nothing. I'm good.
Looks like a lightning delay.
That sounds like a bunch of sissies playing on a rubber field.
Holding an aluminum bat.
Call the copperhead, or the zookeeper. Wooden bat.
Well, go ahead.